All right, I just fertilized all the beds. Well, not all, but majority of the beds and the greenhouse. I'm currently using more of a backyard gardening fertilizer, so small scale amounts, and I would recommend it if that's what uh, your scale is. There's much more appropriate ones for full farm size. We're in that in-between stage right now. But I use this all-purpose down to earth. It's OMRI rated, and I target every 2 weeks. I haven't done it in like 6 weeks, so I am way behind. It is a slow release, so it's also good to do about a week to 2 weeks ahead of planting. I also use it when I'm turning over beds, and I'll put some on like this, and then I will add fresh compost right on top and then plant into that. That was the potato bed. I finally got that sort of ready for planting. We are expected to get 2 to 4 inches of rain in the next like 3 days. So only seeds that I will actually plant right now are big seeds. Nothing small. They'll just get washed away. Even in these beds, like the carrot seeds will still get moved. Not worth doing. So I'm still on a holding pattern again, which is really frustrating. I still also need to cut down the spinach. It's just about to flower. But I did put fertilizer there, sweet potatoes, the pepper beds, onions, and of course the tomatoes are heavy feeders as well. That big onion bed there. So finally getting things a little more caught up. I had shown you guys that I'd pruned the tomatoes the other day. I still need to prune these peppers, and I need to harvest this potato bed. So I'm going to move on to potato harvest before it rains, before these get soaking wet. With the amount of rain, I wouldn't be surprised if I had cracking in some of these potatoes. So hopefully this will be a really good harvest. One thing that I don't always mention is our tractor and the tractor setup and how much it is helpful. So I know a lot of you homesteaders also and gardeners have tractors. One thing that I always have done when I do grow bags of potatoes is I actually harvest right into the bucket. Just dump the bags right out of the bucket, and then I can go move the soil into our compost pile and easily pick out the potatoes. It works as basically a movable shelf. For this, I'm going to actually harvest the potatoes into a half bushel, and I'm going to have put the greens of the potatoes right into the bucket. That way I can actually put the bushel basket in the back, the big tool rack that we have, and I'll show you that. So this is the big tool rack. It's on a 3-point hitch, and actually the guy who designed it and owns the company is great to work with. He's out of Connecticut, so we actually went down and met him shortly after we got the tractor. When we bought the tractor, something I didn't even really think about was there's nowhere to really store your tools. And since we got the tractor to do some of the bigger stuff on the property, but I wanted to also use it for maneuvering around our gardens. And so I carry our big bags of fertilizer, I harvest right into this big tool rack. We've got our rakes, our shovels, our pruners. It's got a chainsaw rack holder, our first aid kit, which is also highly recommended. I tend to cut myself a lot. It also has these drop down legs, and with the PTO you can just drop it off really quickly. Really useful. Our blue bread totes fit in there really well. So our John Deere is a 3046R. It's a trying to remember, I think it's a year or 2 years old now. I can't remember, but we have 170 hours on it. I can't believe. I think it's 2 years old. I think we just hit 2 years. It was COVID when we got it, so I'm trying to remember when that was. And yeah, 170 hours on it. There's a couple things that I absolutely recommend doing. It's getting the forks and the bucket when you buy the tractor, as well as that tool rack. Those three things are probably things we could not live without at this point. If we bought another tractor, we would make sure that we had all three. We do have a land plane or something like that. It's like a grader thing. And I don't know if we have any other attachments at this point. But those are definitely the big ones. The other one we really want is a wood chipper. So we'll see. But I'm gonna pull these potato greens right into the bucket. That way they're easy to move. I'll grab the half bushel and I'm gonna start harvesting. All right, so I started pulling these out and doing pretty good actually. One of the things about potatoes that I like to remind people is that the seed potato is just basically going to be a rotten potato at this point. So when you reach in, be very careful. And I always recommend wearing gloves, and I seem to never have them on. Food for thought. Potatoes use up a lot of the nutrients in the soil. And so it's really important when you plan to replant the bed to know that, because when you're digging in it, you're going to notice it doesn't really hold together like it should, like a healthy soil. Also, potatoes do attract a lot of worms because those seed potatoes are rotting. So I always try to be a little careful when I'm digging in here. And you don't want to scratch the potatoes. So it is actually best to do this by hand, even though it's not ideal. But it's a little bit like a treasure hunt or Easter egg hunt. You never know what you're going to get for a harvest. You always hope for the best, but you don't know what's going on. But remember to dig down really deep, because they do grow vertically, but they also will sometimes go a little deeper. So each of these plants will have like a core that comes down. I'll show you in a second. And then the potatoes grow off of the roots, or like the veins, I guess you could say. So I'll show you how I pull the plants now. Let's see. Go to this corner one. So what I'll do is I'll kind of push the plant over if it's not already pushed over at this point, and I'll grab as low to the ground as I can. See, I try not to shake the camera too much. Do a couple light pulls, or big pulls I suppose. And then you get this huge mound of potatoes, and I just kind of shake it, and the potatoes will fall off nicely into the ground. You can see this brown one is a seed potato. A few of these will get stuck on here, but you can see this is how you got the main roots here, and then these veins come off, and that's where your potatoes grow. So I do actually love these like this size. You don't have to cut them. You pop them right into a little bit of olive oil, and you can grill them or put them in a Pyrex glass pan and bake them. And when you bite into them, they're like a pop of potato flavor. When they're small like this, they're called new potatoes versus the full size. And these can actually get a little bigger also. But the new potatoes always have almost like a better flavor. So once you pull the plant out and you shake, then I'd move these into the barrel, into my basket. And then you'd want to dig down in here to find more potatoes, because you can see there's still some that didn't come out when you pulled that plant up. All right, so I'm still digging in and trying to find the last few, but about a quarter bushel, not bad. Out of this is a 6-in-1 Birdies bed. So definitely a smaller bed than the others. Make sure you dig deep enough and that you really know that there's none left.